Hi, I'd like to give a brief demo on the Deb Moffat Hall ornament loom. When you get the loom package, you take it out and you have several wooden rods in the loom itself. These serve a dual purpose. The circumference of the loom is exactly that of the 2 5/8 inch ornament ball. So in order to make a little room for the beads themselves, you need the rods to provide easement. To determine which rods you need to use when warping the loom, on the back of your instruction sheet is a little chart that tells you which size rod to include for what size beads you're using. The project I'm going to demonstrate today uses size 6 seed beads and size 4 millimeter fire polish and size 11 seed beads. You match your rods to the largest beads you're going to use. According to my chart, I should use the 2 medium-sized rods. To attach them to my loom, I simply remove the rubber band. Now there's additional rubber bands included in the loom, and you simply attach one rod to the front bar, and then the other rod to the back bar. As I said, these simply add a little room when warping around the loom to make easement for your beads. Alright, now you're set to get back there. Measure your warp thread. When creating a woven project, you need a warp thread on the outer edges and then one between each of the beads in your set. When working on this loom, I recommend that you only count the larger beads, and then if you're using something size 11 and smaller with larger beads, include that as a bead set. So in this pattern, the size 11 seed beads would be added and included with the lavender fire polish in the center. With that said, it means we have 5 bead sets, so we need 6 warps. Now I'm using an S-Lon thread. You need to be sure that your thread has stretch and memory when using this loom. So you need to be able to pull it wider and have it go back to its size. To measure your warp thread, you just hold on to the loom with the thread here and then wrap it completely around once for each warp that you'll need. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then add an additional 5 or 6 wraps to provide thread to make your starter unit and to begin weaving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you cut your thread from your spool, put that aside, and remove the warps that you have measured from the loom. Now I like to use a size 10 hard beading needle. I'm going to add that needle to my thread that I just measured. And now we make our starter piece. This loom is not warped like a normal loom. This is what happens when you give a stitcher a loom to make. I stitch the loom, I don't warp the loom. Now there's two different methods to make your starter piece. Whichever you prefer, it doesn't matter. They both give you the same results. This is a 2-bead unit, and this is a square stitch unit. I will demonstrate the 2-bead unit in this video. The first 2 beads on the starter piece are 2 size 6 seed beads. Simply go through them twice to bring them side by side. And then pass up through the bead that has the tail. You always want your working thread and your tail thread to exit the same bead. Now the next 2 beads, see, I'm creating 2 rows of the actual beadwork I wish to make for my starter piece. So we have 2 aqua fire polish. We pass down the size 6 that does not have the tail. Draw our thread through, and then pass up the side that has the tail. As we begin to build our starter piece. The next beads in the unit would be the size 11, the lavender fire polish, and a size 11. Now I have to string that twice. I'll show you what that looks like. As soon as I can chase the bead around the tray. Alrighty. As you can see, I have size 11 fire polish, 2 size 11 fire polish, and a size 11, because this is 2 units at the same time. Now we pass down just the aqua fire polish on the side without the tail. Draw our thread through and position the beads so they make 2 units. Now pass up just the aqua fire polish on the side with the tail. Continue up through the size 11, the lavender fire polish, and the size 11. Draw your thread through. Okay, then the next 2 are aqua fire polish. And this time you have to pass down the whole unit, the 11, the fire polish, and the 11 on the side without the tail thread. Okay, and then pass up the 11 fire polish and 11 on the tail side. See how we're building 2 rows? Then the last 2 beads or the large size 6. And this time I pass down only the fire polish, the aqua fire polish. And pass up the side with the tail. Alright, this completes this starter unit. And this is what we're going to use to warp our loom. Okay. Now, holding it so that the tail is on your left and your working thread is on your right if you're right-handed, you position this starter piece on the loom. You can lean it up against your bar here if you like. And then hold it with your thumb. The thread exits the top row of the starter unit. So I'm going to pass over the top of the loom, back around, and pass through the bottom size 6. Then I'm going to draw my thread through. You don't have to worry about holding it tight at this point. See, it wraps around, because since the thread is going through beads, it's very easy to tighten them all up at the end. So now that my thread is exiting the bottom bead of the unit, I go under the loom, around and over the top. Now I'm going to pass through the aqua fire polish, and you'll notice that this is putting a warp in between each of my beads. And I draw the thread through, and now you can see that I'm creating the warps as I go, and the beads space them perfectly for me. Since I'm exiting the top bead, I pass over the top of the loom, up around the bottom. Now in this pass I'm going to go through the 11s and the fire polish. Okay. Draw that through. See, I'm stitching my loom, I'm not warping my loom. Now I'm again at the bottom, so I'm going to go under, wrap around, and then place this thread next to the aqua fire polish. Complete my stitch. Sorry. It's hard to have thread and a camera going in the same spot. The thread tends to grab the tripod. Alrighty. Now, since it's at the top of the loom, we go around the top of the starter piece. We go around the top of the loom, and we're going to go through this last bottom 6. Okay. And for this last warp, we're going to pass under the loom. This is our tail, if that's getting confusing. This is our tail. Hold that over to the side. We're going to pass under the loom, bring it up around. Now you'll notice that the tail and the warping thread meet here. Well, this is where we give a good tug. Put your thumb on the starter unit and pull. This will tighten up your warp threads. Okay. You want them snug, but they don't have to be too tense at this time. You're going to tie the tail thread and the working thread together using a square knot. Make sure it's a square knot, not a granny knot. You can use a surgeon's knot as well, which just requires you take a couple extra loops. Pull it tight, wrap it around. Good. Alrighty. Now you take your needle and arrange your warps so that they're nice and neat. So we have created a knot right here with our tail thread and our working thread. So now we want to put this starter piece into our open working area. So we simply release some tension by dropping the bar into the center and slide these threads thusly. And then you put the tension back on by bringing the bar back up like this. Okay, now you see my threads are a little crossed over here. It's just a matter of using your needle to straighten them out a little bit. Once you begin adding your rows, these keep themselves nice and neat automatically. There we go. So I have lots of thread left to begin weaving my rows. So I would pick up my first row of beads, which is a size 6, an aqua fire polish, a size 11, a lavender fire polish, a size 11 aqua fire polish, and a size 6 seed bead. Okay, this is my first row. Now to begin weaving, I pass it under the warps, and I use my finger to push up to bring the beads in between each of the warps where they belong. And I hold, you can hold this loom in your hand as you work, because you want to maintain steady upward pressure on these beads as you draw the thread through. Because that's what happens if you don't. Okay, put them back where they belong. I wanted to grab my tail out of the way. There you go. Alright, so steady upward pressure on the beads as you pull your thread through in this direction. Now we're going to pass back through the beads, making sure that we pass over the warp thread. You want to watch for the little glint of the needle as it crosses the thread. That ensures that you are, in fact, over the warp thread on this return pass. Draw your thread through. Make sure that nobody falls through, which means you've stitched correctly. and you're ready to string your next row. And you would continue working in this manner until you fill up the area in between the two bars. Which looks like this. Now I've switched off to the large tension bar. I don't need the two different bars after I've gotten a bit of work done. So 2 of these roughly equals 1 of these. So this is just easier to manage and keeping it on the front. So to drop my tension, I drop the bar into the center, slide these around, create more working room, bring my tension back up, and continue weaving in this center area. So it's drop your tension, move your beads, put the tension back on, and continue weaving. Eventually the beads will reach all the way around. The pattern tells you how many rows to add. You don't want to add extra beads because it will cause the beadwork to ripple when you take it off the loom. There's only your tail thread and your working thread to tie off when you're finished, and then you can add the tops and the bottoms of your ornament to complete your project. With the test group, this project took them 3.5 hours from start to finish. Now, while we were playing with the looms, we found that if you warp them with stretchy thread, this was my starter unit, and then I warped it with stretchy thread, I was able to make a bracelet. So there's other uses for it as well. I hope you enjoy your ornament loom. I am happy to answer any questions you have. It's available at patternstobead.com. Thank you.